Welcome back, I'm Lemony Fresh, and today we're going to wade through the diarrhea river that is Jurassic World Dominion. The Jurassic World franchise is a weird little offshoot sequel spin-off of the original Jurassic Park film, and this film pulls out every trick it has to make it seem connected to the original films, short of actually making a good movie. Look, we got a lot to go through, so let's just get straight to it. Honestly, I have a hard time following the Jurassic World series, but here's a general summary from what I recall. They actually made a functioning live version of the park, which is an actual good idea, since we've never seen that before. For those who may not remember, the original film took place prior to the park opening, so it was worthwhile to set a movie where the park had actually been functioning for years. That's pretty much where the good ideas stop. The only other thing I remember is that there's a little girl with dinosaur DNA for some reason. Oh, and they also established in every film that this somehow does anything to prevent you from being eaten by dinosaurs. Why? Who knows? But it's not even the worst dinosaurs acting reasonable thing in the movie. Let's start with the obvious flaw. If you haven't seen this film, but you have seen the other films in the series, I'd make a bet that you, right now, can just guess at what happens in this movie, and you'll likely be right. The entire movie can be summed up as show new set piece, show new dinosaur, human scream, human run to new set piece, repeat. The problem is that since the formula gets repetitive, and we've already seen any dinosaurs of interest by now, whoever made this felt that they needed to add things we haven't seen in a Jurassic Park movie before. So we start getting scenes like this, where cool American hero Chris Pratt gets into a fight with an assassin/poacher character in a pit for no real reason. But to keep it close enough to Jurassic Park, let's just sprinkle in some dinosaurs in the background so people don't forget. Except I guess we forgot to tell the cast because none of the people there seem to be reacting to the dinosaurs in the background eating people right next to them, and they just cheer on the fight like it's a fucking Street Fighter stage. Why a Jurassic Park film would need a human versus human fight, a car chase, and a shootout is beyond me, but this actually reminds me of another series that started off reasonably, but has pivoted to the point where the original idea is no longer the focus. The fight isn't even good. None of them are. Yeah, there are multiple human versus human fights in this movie. It's one of those generic Hollywood fights that gets butchered with quick cuts and poor camera movements. One of the absolute worst things in this film is continuity. You'll have a scene that ends with one shot and immediately cut to further along without seeing the steps in between, based on where the plot needs it to be. Hand in hand with this is the absolute uselessness of every character in the movie. If every single protagonist was removed from this film, the events would have still gone exactly the same as they had. What I absolutely hate though is how one-dimensional each character is written. Nobody really saves anyone, nobody really wins over the bad guy, and outside of not getting eaten, there aren't really any stakes. And I guess the not getting eaten bit is so tired at this point that they actually write in character decisions to actually put them in danger. Because like I said, you can remove them from the film entirely and it would still be the same. Here's a perfect example. There's a scene where 3 of the good guys are in a plane about to crash, but they only have one seat that can eject safely. So biggest badass action hero Chris Pratt decides that Bryce Dallas Howard should eject and save the Dino DNA girl. Well, absolutely none of that matters because, spoiler alert, Chris Pratt survives the plane crash anyway, saves BDH from being killed, and they just randomly stumble upon the Dino girl who they've been trying to save anyway. In short, they did absolutely nothing and walked around until the plot came to them. Oh, and let's talk a little bit about this plane crash. Earlier in the movie, they made a smuggler pilot, who actually does have the potential to be an interesting character. She flies a real beat-up piece of shit plane, where mostly nothing works, let alone any sort of safety gear. The plane is attacked by a pterosaur, and the engines blow, sending it into a dive and smashing the windows. Smashing the windows! The plane then crash lands into ice, with no windshield. This is the next scene. Note the complete lack of any scratches, even dirt whatsoever. How comfortable they are in frigid temperatures wearing the most casual of clothes. And my favorite, how perfect their hair managed to remain throughout all of this. In fact, the only person who seems to be affected by the cold at all is Bryce Dallas Howard. Okay, so there's one aspect I've ignored so far that was definitely a selling point of this film. The original cast from the first Jurassic Park film has returned for what I can imagine is a big pile of money. And that includes Jeff Goldblum, who had already made a return in the second film, and B.D. Wong, who has been in most of the series. But in this movie, we get back to Sam Neill and Laura Dern. Only problem is, they have nothing to really do. This is usually the case with movies that have way too many characters like this one. This is how many protagonists we have to deal with. Owen, Claire, Dr. Sattler, Ian Malcolm, Alan Grant, Dino DNA Girl, the new pilot, the trainer guy from Jurassic World who made a return for some reason, and the head PR guy who I feel was meant to be a surprise good guy, but the fact that I had to guess whether this twist even happened says enough. Like I said before, remove any of these characters from the movie and nothing changes. It's just a real mess. It just feels like they were throwing more characters, more dinosaurs, more set pieces, but they weren't writing any of them together. And the last trick they tried to pull out of their ass? Callbacks. There are so many low-hanging fruit, piss-poor callbacks in this film. A film that goes on for 2.5 hours that really do nothing. The one that bothers me most actually works as the best criticism of the movie. So let's walk through that scene. And big spoilers here if you haven't seen the film yet. So obviously, the main bad guy, the head of the genetics company, dies. The way he dies is a callback to the way that Nedry dies in Jurassic Park. But I guess they figured that wasn't obvious enough, so they decided to shoehorn the same shaving gel can that Nedry died with. Let's break that down for a second. Somehow, they managed to find Nedry's stolen samples buried in the mud on an abandoned island filled with dinosaurs, but he also brought it with him because the samples are still in it. This movie is at least like 30 years after Jurassic Park. And instead of transferring the samples to a new, high-tech, secure casing, he's still using the same original, damaged shaving can that Nedry used, that he just keeps on a shelf in his office. Like, don't they need to be refrigerated permanently or something? So of course, he tries to leave. His escape pod gets stuck, and he ends up stuck there with 3 of those spinning dinosaur things. He doesn't even try to escape like Nedry. It's almost like at one point he's just walking right into his own death. Oh, and outside of callbacks, let's talk about another thing that I hate in ultra-mainstream cash cows like this. Firstly, let me say that I have nothing against female characters or even a girls get it done moment when it's done well.
Girls do get it done.
But holy shit, this movie is really ham-fisting one. There's a scene where Clara and Dr. Sattler have to go through a holding container to turn the power back on, while being led on walkie-talkie by Malcolm and the new guy. This weird camaraderie between Claire and Dr. Sattler comes out of absolutely nowhere. It's almost like they saw each other and said, hey, we're both a side girl, let's be friends. Oh, and to clarify, I don't think that Dr. Sattler is a side girl at all. She has several significant scenes in Jurassic Park, including basically the thesis of the film in the flea circus scene. This is actually another good point to bring up as well. There simply is no scene where characters sit down and talk. The only thing we get is in Act 1 where the characters are just telling us how they feel and what they're planning on doing. In Jurassic Park, we had several scenes of characters just talking to each other, developing their character, setting up and foreshadowing for later, and analyzing the themes of the film. This never happens in Jurassic World Dominion, let alone any of the Jurassic World films. Oh, and I'm just going to try and fit in this last little fart in there, but I really hate how every Jurassic World movie treats the dinosaurs like they have almost human characteristics, rather than just standing alone as the actual dangerous animals they are. You know, like the main theme of the original movie. It isn't uncommon in these films for humans to simply get lucky, and a dinosaur decides not to eat them because it's convenient to the plot. Or worse, the end fights, which are a staple of these movies, where the T-Rex goes one step short of nodding to the other dinosaur and winking to the fucking audience. Jurassic World Dominion is just a straight up cash grab and a mockery of a beloved movie. Or movies, depending on your taste. It adds absolutely nothing new to the franchise, and if anything, it just does everything it can to tarnish the original masterpiece of a film. It's all flash and no substance. Steven Spielberg is probably turning over in a solid gold bed. If anything, all it does is serve as a testament to the incredible quality of the first movie, which even now, 30 years later, can so succinctly criticize this film unintentionally. So in short, let's all go watch Jurassic Park again. And again, don't forget to like and subscribe.
You know, you read what others had done, and you took the next step. You didn't earn the knowledge for yourselves, so you don't take any responsibility. You stood on the shoulders of geniuses to accomplish something as fast as you could, and before you even knew what you had, you patented it and packaged it and slapped it on a plastic lunchbox, and now you're selling it. You want to sell it. Well,
I don't think you're giving us our due credit.